Hello and welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Magazine podcast. I'm Chris Eckert, editor of the magazine, and I've just got back from UK Games Expo 2021, and you're about to hear a few clips from the various people I happened to meet there today, and had a good time with, so enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my name's Nich Angell, and I'm the creator of the solo RPG adventure game book Colostle, which is named so because the whole adventure takes place within a colossal castle. So it's spelled C-O-L-O-S-T-L-E, which is a bit of a play on words of the fact that the whole world is this incredible fantasy adventure world where mountains, oceans, canyons, cities all exist within the rooms of a massive castle. There's no outside to the castle. People have been born and lived for centuries within this impossible structure, which is multi-floored as well. There are floors above and floors below, and the way the game works, because it's a solo RPG, it's a journal writing prompt adventure. So you use a standard deck of playing cards, but there is a colossal themed set of playing cards as well. And you draw cards, check them against tables, that dictates what your character discovers on their adventures, and then you essentially write the journal that your character is keeping as they go. There are two phases to each sort of day in the adventure. There's the exploration phase where you discover things, and then if you come across an enemy, there's a combat phase as well, all of which has special playing card-based rules. It's as simple as that, really. So the game book itself is a 60-odd page, hardback, fully illustrated book, illustrated by myself and written by myself as well. And the whole thing gives you all the rules you need to explore all the sorts of weird and different places in the world. But also, you can get the game and the book on colossal.com. And on top of that, there's a monthly Patreon as well, which is adding places, adventures, artwork, characters, and settings to the game.
So you're building extensions to the castle, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Can I ask you a question? So for those who don't understand how they're going to play a journaling solo RPG,
sure.
What's the hook? What does it do for you? What does it do to your brain?
So, I guess part of the hook is if you like role playing, and that is to say, taking on the role of a character in a fantasy world that doesn't exist, obviously. But you typically the way to play that would be with friends, and the sort of way you play the game is by talking through what your character does, and all of your friends interacting and saying, "My character reacts to that in that way." When it's a solo game, you write a journal of your adventures essentially, and so I guess the hook is you get to role play on your own. And you get this thing at the end. You get this little book you've made of your adventures. It tells your character's story up to their death, or hopefully, not there. Maps, drawings, anything you've done along the way. You get this wonderful little artifact at the end that you can treasure forever and almost look back over your previous adventures. And in a way, it's kind of different to D&D because D&D you can remember what happened and everything when you're chatting with your friends. But with this, you have a book, that you can go back and go, "Oh, do you remember when I made that stupid mistake and fell in that trap?" That sort of thing. So that's what I'd say is the gimmick, the sort of
Thank you very much.
No worries, thank you.
Where can we find you here?
I am 382, stall 2, 382.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm Paul Stapleton. I run Bedsit Games, which is a vehicle for my game Pauper's Ladder, which came out at the end of 2019. Marvellously came out 3 months before the first lockdown, and it's lovely to be back running a stand at the expo. Well, I'm also punting the Moon Towers, which is the first full expansion for the game, which should be out at the beginning of next year, all being well.
That's great. So what do the Moon Towers bring us?
Well, it adds about 400 new cards to the game. It uses its own decks instead of augmenting the ones from the base game, so it's like a whole new adventure. It also adds 14 new birds and a new set of paupers, and also gives your paupers the chance to learn talents and also suffer curses. But some elements of it can also just be used in the main game as well.
Yeah. That's great.
So it'll be a small sort of pre-order campaign on the website, and shipping issues, notwithstanding and everything else, hopefully about 6 to 8 months it'll be ready.
That's great. And so for those who don't know Pauper's Ladder, I described it as like an adventure game, like a kleptomaniac adventure game.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it turns kleptomania into a virtue.
Yes, that's it. Could you just explain a little bit like how people play?
Yeah, certainly. So the theme behind the game is as a tournament which is only open to the poorest people in the land, to win the chance to become the next ruler by proving that they've got the virtues to do so. So you have your pauper and a bird companion that you can train, and you settle from your home city with some gems in your pocket and a piece of equipment, depending on who you are, and you explore around the realm in the hope of righting wrongs, completing quests, learning recipes, gaining money and so on, and all of these things are effectively resources which you can trade in to learn virtues. So for instance, you can donate your money to learn the virtue of generosity and so on, and the first player to learn any 3 of the virtues wins the game. It's kind of a kind of a cross between Talisman and Earthbound. I think that's it.
Yes. We're still waiting for you to get the license for Earthbound.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? I'd love that. Actually, there is a game somewhere nearby here that they're demoing, which looks a lot like Earthbound. They use that same style of graphics, so yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Where can we find you at Expo?
Oh, I am on stall 2-344. I'm opposite the Shadow of Mog post-Brexit RPG. That's a good landmark, that, so yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
My name's Tim Clare. I'm a writer and erstwhile performer, but certainly I do most of my performing via my podcast for writers, Death of a Thousand Cuts now. And yeah, I write fiction and non-fiction, and I do a bit of journalism and write about games as well. I've never not been... I don't think there's ever been a stage in my life where someone would not have confidently put me in the bucket marked nerd, and I'm quite comfortable with that. But there was definitely a point in my life where my nerdery was more of the flavour of being a performance poet, which still no one's going to go, oh, that's wow, Tim, that's a real kind of laddish roister-doister kind of. I've even used the term roister-doister there, as if I'm immediately turning into a weird caricature of myself. But certainly the nerdiness was more, oh, how can I make... I'm going to write a Senryu. That was that. It was that kind of literary, sort of slightly pretentious nerdiness. And then, and then a few years ago, I got back into board gaming. I played board games growing up loads with my dad. He was a big board game fan. He got a lot of the kind of classic Ravensburger games because my grandmother, his mother, was German. So he would go over, and my dad was a languages teacher, he'd go over on the school German exchange and come back with, in German, these amazing, lovely rendered board games like Fang den Hut, which I believe was released in the UK as Cop It, or Catch the Hat. But it's like a little kind of Ludo-style game where you go around and you can capture other people's pieces and take them back. And one called Mittersnacht Party, with Midnight Party. Yeah, it's been re-released and it's actually still available in the UK but it's like your guests at a house party in the country, and a ghost is going around and frightening the various guests. And it had a little glow-in-the-dark ghost you could move around by rolling a dice, and it was kind of cool. And they were these beautiful, mainly roll and move, but beautifully produced Ravensburger games, and with their kind of coloured wooden pieces. And Ravensburger still do these very, very nicely produced memory games. I play for my sins Frozen Memory with my daughter, the Ravensburger, and they're lovely. And so that was my introduction, and we had a lot of those kind of classic games and beautifully produced early games. I played a lot of Wembley as well. I wasn't a big football fan, but it was like a football manager game, and I'm amazed that it's not an area that hasn't seen more and better games in the industry, because Wembley, you were taking your team from league obscurity through to the FA Cup final, and
this is Football Manager.
Yeah. It was pre-Football Manager, pre-existing as a thing that loads of people wanted to play. Really simple, so the lower your team, you had worse dice to roll. You could buy players, which would give you extra points. But the thrill of taking, even I, as a non-football following person, or only casually, understand the thrill of taking Bury through to beat Man United in the FA Cup final and scoring an upset. With having spent loads on players, it was good fun, and so I played all them, and it was and lots of card games with my dad, like cribbage, and a game that I think is now getting the recognition it deserves, Oh Hell, as a game with the best game you can play with 52 cards, which is it's a variant of the Whist family, but it's a trick-taking game where you are bidding, you see your hand and you bet. You only score on correctly betting how many of the tricks you're going to win each round, and you can go for none. And as the game goes on, your hands become bigger and bigger, and so the score you get for deliberately failing to win a trick gets higher and higher. It's a terrific game. I think it was around mid-1930s it was invented, but an amazing game with the Whist family. So I played for a while, and then I think becoming like a teenager, I went through kind of like Warhammer and 40k phase, definitely, again a Games Workshop phase, and then I just stopped, went to university, and no one around me played board games, and I never played them for years. And then I think, as a sort of slide, get a bit older, you settle down a bit, you want those times around the table with friends again. And I tell you who it was. It was my friend, the poet Mark Grist, who was the first person I knew who was really into board games. Had what is familiar to a lot of board game folks, including myself now, which is shelves full of board games, and then pulled from beneath the table a wicker hamper, of the size you only really see in kind of interwar period children's adventures, the kind of hamper that could reasonably support people underneath a hot air balloon full of board games. And he's like, you've got to play something. And I went around his house, and I think we played Mansions of Madness, and he'd put like a spooky soundtrack on, and I was playing like a 1920s debutante, and I was like, I'm kind of quite into this. This is quite good fun. And from there, I think the first game I bought in my collection was Twilight Struggle, maybe, and which is quite a heavy game to start with, but it was great fun. And I was like, this game has flavour, and I feel like I'm learning something about an era, and I kind of loved it. And I started bringing it to gigs when I was as a poet. I'd take it along, and I'd set up this 6-hour board game, and people would be coming over the table and going, "What are you doing?" And it's go, "Well, at the moment, I'm struggling for dominance in South America." But it's a brilliant example of a game that people look at the board, and people who don't play games can see it's a map of the world. There's red and there's blue. Some sides have got more blue than they've got red. People can understand it kind of at a glance. In fact, it's a great example of a game you can walk away from and come back the next day, and you can see the board state and resume the game. And I think from there I was just kind of hooked. And the other thing that happened is I had my first fiction book came out in 2015, and a couple of people came to the launch, and afterwards I said, "Hey, does anyone want to go for drinks at the pub afterwards, because I'm very lonely?" And a bunch of people who'd just been in the audience came, and we got chatting, and they were like, "Do you want to join? Would you like to do a Dungeons and Dragons game with us?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm still playing with them. We're still doing the same campaign. We just turned level 17. But that was, and so I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, and from there I learned the rules to Pathfinder. I'm in 3 Dungeons and Dragons campaigns as a player, and I run 2 as well. So now I'm fully into it, and I love the hobby, and I it's something that I sort of corner people about and evangelize about, is playing board games, because it's kind of given me so much, and it's so much of my life now.
Yeah, absolutely. Got it. What has it given you, other than that rich, this self-historical tapestry? What do board games actually give us?
So it's interesting to me that during the pandemic, when people couldn't get together, the sales of Pokemon cards and Magic cards went up. And not only did they go up, they went up massively. The number of people I know who now are having this are going, "Oh my gosh, what's happened?" Because a load of Kickstarter campaigns that they backed in the first month of the pandemic are now coming home to roost all at once. There was a big moral panic, and there's an amazing thing that happened in America with, this is kind of going slightly off track, but with people ordering a load of seeds, garden seeds in the first few weeks of the pandemic, thinking I'm going to take up gardening, forgetting they had, and then
them all appearing sort of 9 months later across America, and it causing like a security outbreak where people forgot that they'd ordered them, had all these seeds arriving from China, and Fox News doing stuff where they were saying it's like a biological attack because all these people, but you know, people got into gardening, people went back to stuff that I think brought them comfort. And one of the things that brings me comfort, and I think it brings a lot of it, is those games that I associate with playing with my dad. A time when I could be around a table and there were kind of there's kind of like explicitly no stakes when you play a game, right? Like, people don't always understand. If I sit down and say, do you want to play Power Grid? It's what we're going to do is we're going to compete to build the most efficient energy infrastructure in Western Germany. Like, that is not a strong pitch to me, and I love Power Grid. I think it's an amazingly well-designed game and great fun to play. The theme is not intrinsically interesting, but sometimes the boringness is the point because it's very safe. And it actually is fun. You're bidding, you are setting stuff up, you are creating a board state, you're building something together. The other thing games give me, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, is community. Like, I've met so many genuinely wonderful people. Also, without sort of getting too, and I hope this is the kind of answer that you kind of want, but this is the truth, I guess. I think I've not always been sort of like, I'm sometimes can be a bit shy and a bit socially anxious. Games can give me a space where I don't have to worry, will I run out of things to say? We have, like, you know how British people talk about the weather all the time? Well, games just mean, at the very worst, if this evening goes like we can't think of anything, we haven't done anything, we've just come out of the pandemic and what have you been up to? Well, nothing. Well, it doesn't matter because actually what we're doing is we're all making potions and hoping they don't explode, right? Like, that is always, like, you sit down around a game of Quacks of Quedlinburg, and I mean, the first thing I did when I met up with my friends I hadn't been able to see with the pandemic, and we could meet up safely, is we sat down and we played a game of Quacks, and we were laughing until tears ran down our face. And I don't think it's normally fun, but I don't think it's often quite that fun. But I think the extra element was like, we're back doing something where the stakes are explicitly zero. And I think after a time and living it through a period where the stakes of everything have felt so high, to be able to just do something that is just silly, or the way you're creating a story together. I mean, human beings since the beginning of time, we've got together and we've created stories. Someone has sat around a fire and they said, let me tell you the story of this kind of beast that lives of the wilds. Well, you sit down and you play something like Dungeons and Dragons or Abyss or Descent or any of those games. You can recreate that exact experience and you can tell your own story, but if you're not a professional storyteller, you can still participate without worrying, how am I gonna like continue this story? Because the game goes, well, here's some starting points. Here's like a framework we're gonna create. Today we're gonna create a story being mountain climbers who can summit these different things. Oh no, you've fallen, you've got caught. That can be the game we play today. Tomorrow we're gonna make a farm and we're all gonna be like doing animal husbandry. I played Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small, an amazing 2-player sort of miniature version of that game with my wife. And she wept when she started crying when she didn't have room for one of her sheep that had just been born. And she cried, but like watching a horror movie or watching a comedy or watching a Pixar movie, she wasn't actually crying in a way that like left her traumatized afterwards. It's fun and it's cathartic, but it's explicitly meaningless in the best way, in the way that's safe. And I think that's what I love about games, is our ability to often explore like real feelings, to feel safe. Someone who's like super shy gets to hang out and socialize with loads of people, and it just gives me a framework for meeting and hanging out with people who often then go on to become like dear friends.
So, the book. Pitch me the book.
I'm really interested to know why I and other people play games. why they're so important to us. And I know that sounds like it's kind of begging the question. Are they important to us? Well, some people say no, but I would argue that there's lots of things we don't think of as games that are, in fact, games. And as soon as you kind of grandfather in sport, there's all sorts of things that are game-like, and that's what I'm kind of... But I've always loved games, and they've always been an important part of how I understand myself, and they've come back to become very central to like how I live my life and how I spend my leisure time, and I want to know why games. So I'll give you a specific example about the book, and I think maybe explains why I care about it so much. I was speaking to a guy from the British Museum about a dig that happened in the 1920s, where they were digging in Mesopotamia, well, in Iraq, and they dug up the ancient city of Ur, and they found they dug up all these graves of kind of kings and queens, and they found in 4 of the graves in the burial sites, like the big kind of like kings and queens would be buried with, like they found this big one that had like all the servants had been like murdered, so they were buried. They were taking everything they wanted to take to the afterlife. So they had their servants had been killed with them. There were like a chariot drawn by oxen. There was like a lyre player who was buried with her fingers still on the lyre and had been poisoned and buried alive. There were riches. There were like dresses. There were fancy clothes. There were vessels and plates for food. And then there were all these smaller graves around the big real estate of the king of sort of local people who'd been buried in normal coffins, and they'd be buried with 1 or 2 things to take with them to the afterlife. And so people would often be buried with like a dagger or like a plate and a cup. These were like important things that they would take. But 4 of the graves, people had been buried with what turned out to be board games. And that was like thousands of years ago. People were playing what we now understand to be a recognisable board game, and the one thing that they thought to take with them to the afterlife for eternity, the one item they wanted to take out of all the things they could take, was a board game. And I've stood with my daughter in the cemetery, and she's asked why there's a teddy bear on someone's gravestone. So I think often we think of these as like being this incredibly ancient, like almost superstitious thing, but we still bury people with items that were important to them. And just as a teddy bear might be something that you bury someone you care about as a company, these people were buried, and a dagger might be to protect you. These people said, well, what I want is a game, so when I go to the afterlife, if I see someone there, I'll go, hey, do you want a game of this? And I find that quite moving, and I realise that would be what I would take. That would be my teddy bear, and it would be my dagger, and it would be my food, And I think there's something quite profound. And why, with all the things that I can do with my one precious life, do I want to spend that time playing board games? Is it frivolous? Like, is it something that we should give up? Is it like an addiction? Is it something that we're using to avoid real life? That's why my working title for the book is No More Games, right? Like, I like this because do we live in a world where the problems we face are too serious to waste time playing games? Or is there something profound and important about games? A reason why we should be... Is there a value that they do give us? Is in fact the way that we can relate to each other over a game and the lessons we can learn from it exactly what the world needs right now? The answer may be no, but that's a question that I want to ask, and it's also been learning some stuff about myself as well. And I think, as I kind of go on and I meet people who are maybe a bit neurodiverse as well, I'm learning some stuff about myself as well, and maybe why I find games a useful mediator in relating to people.
What an incredible answer.
Sorry, I always do really long answers
That's
to...
so good. I'm going to ask you a really happy question now.
Oh, please do.
What board game are you going to take to the afterlife with you?
That's such a good question. what board game would I take to the afterlife with me?
And we'll assume what your situation there, which is you don't get dumped in a location you're aware of. You're going to be wandering around basically a place like this.
Yeah.
And you're going to be asking people, hey, do you want a game of this? To make friends, more or less.
So it's got to be So I'm not going to give a joke answer. I'm going to give like a game that's really profound. Sorry. No, so I mean I would say wow. I mean it's so funny because I feel like if I get this wrong, then I might actually die, and then you know, like, this is the one you asked for. And then I'll go, no, I can't. So I genuinely, there's lots of games I like for different reasons, but I think for something that would be playable with lots of different people, I think I would go with Agricola or Creatures Big and Small, the big box. So at least you get some variance, but it's a wonderful 2-player game that you can play in under an hour. It's very simple. I haven't met anyone who can't understand it, but there's like you get all of the juice of Caverna in, you know, you're building this little farm. You can rear sheep and cows and horses and pigs. You can expand your farm. You can build out but it's the decision space. It's really tight. You can build, like, I just feel like when you lose, like, there's always a feeling that you get to sit back and look, and there is your farm. Like, I think that's what Euro games, you know, even conflicty ones, what they do really well is you work together to build something. I think that, and that every time I encounter a Euro game that I really like, it's often one where the ending board state kind of tells a story. And I think everyone since the beginning of civilization really understands the concept of animal husbandry. So assuming that in the afterlife there are people from various eras, like...
Oh, that's good. Okay.
They're all going to... I'm going to say we're making a farm, and there's going to be no technology there that is going to confuse them. I mean, okay, so the insemination station tile might, like, involve a little bit of... But, like, most of it is going to be very clear to them. Like, the huts are thatched. And I genuinely think it's a wonderful, charming... And, like, Uwe Rosenberg is not controversial to say he's a great game designer, but I think I think in that game there is a distillation of everything that makes Uwe Rosenberg games charming and great. And if you're, you know, a little bit of a snob and you like strategy and thinking and like that thinky kind of like, ooh, I want to do this, but I want to do this. Ooh, I'm not got quite enough resources. That tension is there, encapsulated in this beautiful little game, and it's a tiny, unintimidating box, and it's charming. And I just think, I'd sit down with someone, I'd play it with them, and within 5 minutes we'd have a crowd round us. It's one of those games.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
So you're going to be wandering the halls.
I am. It makes me sound a little bit like a spooky Victorian ghost, like a
Yeah. That's the type of wig you're wearing.
Yeah. And the fact that I'm transparent. Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring it up. So I'm hopefully going to get this up this evening. So if people spot you, if they can spot you, what would you like them to come and talk to you about?
If people spot me, and I'm today I'm currently wearing like I'm kind of like it's. I was going to like give a description of myself, but like what I would be describing is like 50% of the people here. But I'm currently wearing a pink Gengar like tiki shirt. If people come to speak to me, I would just love them to say, "Would you like to sit down and have a game?" Because like there's no game that you could play with me. I'm sure someone could find an exception, but then there's no game that you could play with me or ask me to play that I wouldn't want to play. I'm just so up for meeting people who play games, chatting to them about games, and playing games. That's what I'm here to do.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm Panny. I'm with Manic Productions, and we're at stand 2339 and selling a wide range of RPG products. We're also here with Anima Press. I've got a game here, Shadow of Mog, which is a post-Brexit role-playing game. It's set in the London Underground. You play as a group of survivors who have to survive and scavenge in a world kind of flipped upside down. And the key hook of that role-playing game is that all the decisions have to be voted on and resolved as a group. And really it's a test of democracy in like a fallen world, quite topically.
You've got a new expansion as well.
So no, we've just got a softcover version and a hardcover version.
Oh, Shadow was it, right?
Yeah, probably a terrible branding decision on my part, but yeah. This is meant to be the Aristocrat edition, so it's a more expensive hardcover.
Oh, very good.
But it's effectively the same game, but in colour.
Let's do the next thing. And more importantly, you have small maps and things like that for sale.
Yes.
Tell me about these.
So this is the Isle of Glaslyn. This is something myself and Alad works on. And it's effectively a pamphlet adventure for old school essentials, or like old school D&D. It's got a hex map on one side with a town map, and then on the other side there's loads of GM information like random tables and rumour tables and things like that. And then it all flips over and there's like 2 dungeons within it we squeezed in, and each of the like 7 hexes is detailed out. So it's really compact, and you can just add it into your campaigns or run it as a sort of single adventure over a few sessions.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
I'm Anna Chris, sharing the stall with Manic Productions here, stall 2339. So we've got, as obviously Panny's been through some of the other bits, we also have Mutants here. So Mutants is a game about cats with superpowers, essentially. It's a small zine game. It's not meant to be taken seriously, so definitely don't make that mistake. But we've got fully illustrated essentially all the way through. You've got 12 different cat breeds, 12 different superpowers, which you can assign at random or pick. It's a simple game. I tend to play it a lot with people who maybe haven't played RPGs before. You know, that sort of group of friends that you've got that are kind of like, oh, D&D, don't really want to play that. There's a full adventure kit included in the back as well, with maps and everything that you need. And so we've got it on a special discount while we're at the con, so with 25% off £6, for an evening's entertainment. Or more than that if you really, really like cats.
It's good banter and it's lovely cats.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, that's what it's about. Thanks.
I am Ben Burns, and I'm here with our supernatural murder mystery social deduction game, Blood on the Clocktower.
What is it, for those who don't know?
So, Blood on the Clocktower is a social deduction game akin to your werewolves and Avalons. The key difference is that in Blood on the Clocktower, there's no elimination. When you die, your role's not revealed. You still take part in discussion. You still close your eyes at night. And most importantly, you still win or lose with your team. So you're never not playing. Furthermore, there is a mechanic known as drunkenness and poisoning, where you can become poisoned or drunk in the night. Your ability will then malfunction. If you're a role that does something, it won't happen. If you're a role that learns information in the night, the GM will wake you up and lie to you and feed you false information. So there's always kind of a 10-15% chance that what you think you know is actually incorrect. And it makes for a lot more social reads than your typical social deduction game.
This has been around for a long time. We've seen versions of this. We've seen you a lot. Well, not me personally, but so when is it landing in people's hands when they can actually get hold of it?
So the release date is November the 30th. That's the fulfillment date where we expect all the shipping and stuff to be done and for it to be landing on folks' doorsteps.
Yeah.
You can pre-order it right now from bloodontheclocktower.com. We're expecting it to also be in a bunch of retailers as well, so if you want to support bricks and mortar, which you totally should, you could go get it there.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Right, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So we're Cold Spring Games. We're the UK's exclusive distributor of some massive titles such as King Domino, King of Tokyo, Sushi Go, and Forbidden Island. And we're here today demoing some of our fantastic games. We have games such as Quacks of Quedlinburg that we're demoing, Photosynthesis, and we also got plenty of award-nominated games as well, such as Royal Visit, Abandoned All Artichokes, Prisma Arena. Lots of name dropping here, and we've also got, as part of the King of Tokyo promotion, we've got the UK exclusive monster Seagull, which is exclusive to the UK, and you can come and grab it from our stand if you come here today and for the weekend.
Where is your stand?
Our stand is
in the middle.
In the middle, it's stand 2538 to be precise.
Okay, I am Dan Jolin. I'm the editor and co-founder of Senet magazine. I am here promoting and selling Senet magazine, which is an independent, print-only mag about the craft, creativity and community of board gaming. We're at stand 1047 in Hall 2, and we're selling every issue that's available so far, and subscriptions, and just generally standing here talking about how much we love board games with people who love board games.
And what's in the most recent issue?
So the most recent issue, we've got an interview with Isaac Childers about Frosthaven. We've talked to the absolutely brilliant artist Catherine Hamilton, who does all the artwork for the Evolution series of games, beautiful watercolours. She's got a really good story, actually. But I won't spoil it, you know. People can buy the magazine, but she's got a fascinating story. We've got a review of my favourite game of the decade, which is Oath.
Yes.
I know the decade is only 1 year old, but what the hell, I'm going to go out and say that.
I'm going that way as well, just to say.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's the Mona Lisa of board games.
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah.
We've got a piece on zombies.
Yeah.
Everyone loves zombies.
Yes, we do.
And we've done an investigation into rondels as well.
Sorry, wombles.
Rondels or roundels. Am I saying it right? Is it roundel or is it rondel?
I'm not sure if anyone can hear me at all, but we're both wearing masks, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I thought Dan had said wombles.
Wombles.
Of what? Wimbledon Green?
Yeah.
No, where are the wombles?
Yeah, Wimbledon. Wimbledon
Green.
Common.
Wimbledon Common.
Yes. So actually, that's wombles. Yeah, that should have been the headline, shouldn't it? You know, the instead of rondels, it's we are the rondels or whatever. What was the song? We are the wombles. Anyway, whatever. So yeah, a piece on rondels, and then previews and reviews, all the things you want from a great magazine, which isn't Tabletop Gaming Magazine.
Yes, exactly. It's the other magazines you should subscribe to.
Yes.
Except for the Empire as well.
Yeah, but we're totally we're independently published, so it's something that me and my co-founder James created ourselves, and we do basically everything that outside of what our contributors, our amazing contributors and illustrators do. Yeah, so we distribute it and we run the shop and everything. So it's a passion project and a labour of love. But I know it's just great to come here and see the reaction of people to it, because
it's been a good show.
So far it's been a good show.
One more question. What's your number one reason why Oath is so good?
Oh, well. Okay. The thing is, I'm going to start listing reasons, and that's not going to be the number one reason of why Oath is so good. So I'm going to. All right. Okay. I need to think about this carefully, and I'm going to say because it creates amazing stories. Every game you play, as you're playing it, because it's quite abstracted, but you realise as you're playing it that those abstractions are just perfectly pitched in such a way that you can see the drama, the narrative drama that's happening above them. So you're suddenly like, oh, wait a minute, so you're a crime lord and you're using your connections with the underground to try and manipulate power and take over my kingdom. How dare you? You kind of like... And you just get these amazing emergent narratives from it. And it does it better, I think, than any other game I know, because while I love specific themes, that does tend to narrow that. So it manages to be, and I said this in my review for Tabletop Gaming Magazine, it manages to be deeply thematic whilst also being abstract. And I just don't know how Cole Worley did that. I just don't understand how he managed to pull that off. He squared a circle. So that's what I love most about it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dan.
No worries.
Where can we find you? What's the stand?
So stand 1047 in Hall 2.
Yep.
We've got lots of magazines to sell.
Yep.
So come by and buy some, or just come and have a look. We've got some out on display. Just come and have a look, pick them up, flick through them, and you'll see what we're all about.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
I'm Andy Lewis. I'm a member of Polyhedron Collider. We do a semi-regular podcast. I'm not going to say regular because it's never set in stone because we're that badly organised. We try to do a couple of podcasts a month depending on what people are available. And I am here, the sole member actually of the now 5 of us who's unable to make it this weekend. I know Rory's probably going to be coming on the Sunday, but I'm here all weekend because I'm about the only person who's available, so I am the representation, I'm afraid. You're stuck with me. But we're here because we love board games, we cover board games, in fact all tabletop games, so RPGs, battle games, stuff like that.
So what have you seen that's good, and what have you played? It's quite early on Friday, really.
It is, yeah. It's lunchtime Friday, so I've seen a lot of stuff by Alley Cat. They are definitely friends of the show. I mean, I'm friends with Cesar anyway because we've done a lot of coverage of them in the past. So things like Dice Hospital and other games like that. So I've already gone through a game of Eternal Palace, which it's actually very good. Now, Cesar gave us a kind of a sneak preview of it a couple of years ago, actually, on Tabletop Simulator, one of the online platforms anyway. Others are available. And that was a sort of proper, it was almost like a play test because he was still developing it at the time. And we really liked it, so Steve and I would take it through that, and we really liked it. So it's a kind of a fairly straightforward dice placement kind of game with a little bit of sort of strategy on top, with a sort of building tracks element to it. Really good, really enjoyed it, very beautiful. It's still in development at the moment, so it's not quite ready, but I understand it'll be hitting Kickstarter probably either later this year or early next year, as far as I can tell. But I'd also like to see Dice Theme Park. That's by them. Yep. So that's something he gave us a very quick preview during the same demonstration, but that was like super duper alpha prototype when it was there, so black and white images and just literally blocks of numbers on cards. So we're really keen to see that because we quite like Dice Hospital. So Dice Theme Park is apparently the next step up in terms of complexity, but similar in mechanics.
Have you played the expansions to Dice Hospital?
Yes. Well, I've played 2 of the 3 in the community care expansion. That's called. There's the maternity one. There's the whatever the ambulance one is that affects the draft at the start.
Is it City?
The City one, yeah.
And then there's like business as well, right?
Yes. So yeah, there's one that affects essentially the draft at the start. There's one that means you can upgrade elements of your hospital and staff, and then there's the maternity one, which just adds chaos and disorder and a lot of misery to the game.
So my opinion is the maternity one is the one, and then you leave everything else in the box.
Interesting. No, you see, we disagree. Now, admittedly, I haven't played the middle one. But I've played the City one, which, if I'm honest, I think just adds a lot of faff to a dice draft. I don't think it really adds much to the game. The maternity one we found just makes it far too difficult. Yeah, we did not enjoy that. I'm not great at Dice Hospital, so I'm not going to turn around and say I'm an exemplar of the game because I'm not. I could see what it was doing, and it was really made it really quite challenging. But Rory has played all 3, and he has advised me that the middle one, the upgrade one, is probably the one that's the best of the 3. But I haven't played it, so I can't comment.
Yeah, I think for me it was because the maternity one added something that felt like a core element of the game, whereas the upgrade one is just a series of upgrades, and that's quite nice. And if you like the thinkiness of it, that's really good. I quite like the narrative of you don't know how many babies are turning up.
Right, yeah, sure.
I think that's quite funny. So yeah, that's what I'm. That's cool. So Alley Cat, I've just taken you away from a game of Red Rising, if you don't mind.
Yes. It was literally about sort of 10 minutes of Red Rising, although apparently the game only lasts about half an hour, so I think I've pretty much seen everything I need to see. No, apparently it's supposed to be, according to the guy at Asmodee that published them, it is supposed to be a quick game. It's supposed to be half an hour, 45 minutes sort of game. So it's a hand-building game set in the Red Rising universe, which is set on a bunch of novels. And it is literally play a card into one of 4 areas, and then draw a card from one of the 3 that you didn't play in, and then get a bonus next turn. Really, really straightforward. Admittedly, this is heavily caveated that I've only played 2 rounds of this game, but my initial impression is it isn't for me.
And that's it.
That's all really I can say, but I mean, I've seen enough of it to know that it probably isn't for me.
Did you ever go back and play Arnak?
Lost Ruins.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Actually,
Yeah.
Steve and I played it one afternoon. God, it must be about a year ago now. Actually, Steve got a demo copy from CGE, and yeah, we played through a full game of that. We got a few rules wrong, but we always do. But we really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think that should have won Spiel des Jahres for Killer Spiel. That should have won it because did Paleo win this year? I think it was.
I
think it was Paleo.
can't remember. Okay, I'll take your word for that.
Yeah.
It was a game I'd never heard of. But it always is.
Yeah, often is, yeah. Definitely. Actually, yeah. Because what won last year? Was it Pictures? Pictures won.
That sounds familiar. Yes.
Yeah, which is like from a pair of designers who no one had ever heard of really, and came out of nowhere. So,
good for them.
Yeah, good for them, I suppose. But yeah, should have been Czech Games for that one. I think.
We did enjoy it. It's another one that we'd like to play again, partially because we got some of the rules wrong, not massively, but enough to like, oh crap, yes. And then it's only a 5-round game, I think it is, maybe 7. So it's quite quick. So it's along the same vein as things like Cooper Island. So if you screw it up right from the start, you're boned. It's really quite punishing.
Did you feel that?
I felt it, but then again, it's not as punishing as Cooper Island.
No, I thought it was quite gentle on me for what I was.
Okay.
I mostly played the 2, so.
Yes, we played it too as well. So, but again, it was a learning game, so pinches of salt required.
Yeah,
but we did enjoy it, and we could see what it was doing, and we enjoyed it, and we think, we could certainly do better next time. So yes, maybe punishing is probably the wrong word, but definitely your first few turns are definitely important, and if you get one of them wrong, it might be difficult to recover unless your opponent makes a mistake.
Cool. So, what else are you looking forward to seeing? Have you got anything lined up? Anything booked in that you're?
Nothing booked, but I have talked to a few publishers that are, just turn up, it'll be fine. So there's a few more things I want to see at Alley Cat. So Tinner's Trail, because I really like Martin Wallace's stuff. And I am a big fan of Phalanx's stuff.
Yes.
So
they good?
They are good.
Did you play Europe Divided?
No, but I was taken through a demo of. Well, I haven't played a full one, but I was taken through a demo of it 2 years ago, I think it was, the last expo we were allowed at, and I was sat down because I'm friends with Yarrow, and every time I see him we have a good natter for a good 45 minutes or so because we both like to talk. And he sat me down, he took me through Europe because they were still developing it at the time. He says, right Andy, I want your opinion on this because you like our stuff. And I went, yes I do. And they took me through, and I really enjoyed it, and I really like the idea of it because it's a 2-player game, isn't it? So it's very similar to Twilight Struggle.
It is, yes, that's kind of it. It's an updated Twilight Struggle. With things you recognise, well, things I recognise, because I wasn't around in the Cold War, really.
No.
And I don't think you were either.
No, before our time.
It's just nice to see things that I remember from the news, and then having to make choices about them come up. You know, that's where it just made thematically made a massive difference to the way I played the game. So. Yes, what did you think?
I didn't, because it wasn't ready. When they basically took me through it as an explanation of this is what can happen, this is what can happen. So okay, that sounds pretty interesting, but I haven't actually played a game of it yet. But it was definitely the sort of game I liked because Steve and it must have been John were both behind me at the time and going, yeah, this isn't for us, and they just wandered off and left me to it.
It's for certain types.
Yes, it is, but I actually quite like that about Phalanx because they are fastidiously historically accurate almost to a fault. But I really appreciate that because if they want to do it properly, and I do admire that mentality about them, and they always do, because I've got Hannibal, which I really like. It's a long game, and I hardly ever get to table.
Yeah, I don't think I've not played Hannibal.
That's really, really good. It's a 2-player game, so it's like in the same vein as Star Wars Rebellion. You know, it's head-to-head. One of you plays as Hannibal, one of you plays as the Roman Empire, and it's essentially the Carthage invasion. And it's a long game, so it's card based, but there's loads and loads of tokens. So I kind of describe it as it's almost like sort of Super Turbo Othello, because you've basically got 2-sided tokens.
Super Turbo Othello 64, obviously.
64, obviously, yeah. Everything's 64-bit now. It was 128, I don't know. But essentially, your control over the board is marked by these double-sided tokens, so blue or red, basically. And you can play cards that will affect certain areas of these tokens. And it's just the kind of it's an attack, counter-attack, attack, counter-defense, counter, that kind of game. So it's a long, drawn-out affair. So if that's not your thing, you probably won't enjoy it. But it's absolutely my kind of thing. So, as I say, it's not for everyone. but it's very, very cool. The next one is, I'm waiting on at the moment, is Successors, which is being shipped at the moment through Kickstarter, so it should be arriving pretty soon. But I've actually literally just spoken to them in the last sort of hour or so, and that is essentially, they've described that as multiplayer Hannibal.
Yes.
So I am looking forward to that.
Yeah, that goes up to 6 or something.
5, 2 to 5.
Oh, it's 2 to 5.
Yeah. And I say that just because he's only just told.
Oh.
But it'll leave my short-term memory soon. But they're bringing out a new game, which I can't remember the name of, which is based on sort of Saxon England.
Oh, interesting.
It's got a weird name, not Cadwallader, but something along those lines. And there's a sort of basic map of England. It's a kind of area control. They say it's about the same level as Inish.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So that kind of, it's similar era as well.
I really like it.
I do, yeah. It's a really clever game. For something so simple.
There's a whole genre of not war games that I like.
Yes.
Which I Inish and the King. I like The King is Dead for the same reason. There's a group of people here called Nuts. They do a game called 300 Fire and Water.
Okay.
That's an abstract war game again. It's just fabulous. Things like Rurik, which is by Stanislav Kodinsky, who's
Yes.
the Dice School.
Yes.
All these not war games, but are basically war games.
War games, yeah.
These are a little niche that I like to dive down and make me really happy.
Yes, they're very satisfying games, I find.
Sorry, I don't know why I just needed to tell you that.
That's fine. No, I know exactly what you mean. It's kind of subtle conflict.
Conflict that is driven by some other engine.
Yes.
Than rolling dice and freeform moving things. And I think that just does something nice in my brain. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted strategy, I think, is the way I think about it, really. Things like Eclipse as well. Okay, that's got overt combat with the dice rolling, but there's a lot of manoeuvring in the background. I mean, Twilight Imperium is probably the best example of that. Whilst there are lots and lots of ships on the board, it's not about the combat. It's about the political manoeuvring and getting your stuff in the right place in order to accomplish one thing, which takes 4 hours. And if someone gets in the way of that, you swear a lot because you've spent ages building it up, and then one person just goes donk. Lots of hand gesturing for those of you who obviously can't see me.
Very good. Is there anything else you'd like to spread a bit of joy with? You'd like to recommend, or
other than Alley Cat and Phalanx? You're probably on the spot now. I don't think I've actually seen enough of the show yet to say anything like that.
Yes, it's unfair, isn't it? Okay, well, in that case, I'll say thank you very much. Would you like people to come up to you at the show and say hi?
Yes, absolutely, do so. I've already had that a couple of times already, so people have come up and said they've given us feedback on the podcast, and it's all been very positive. I'm not going to turn around. We've not been berated yet, although there's always can you cover more board games and less RPGs? But his friend who was standing right next to him said, yeah, more RPGs and less board games. So as I said, look, we can't please everybody. But no, everyone is more than welcome to come up to me. I don't bite. I will talk the hind leg off you though. But by all means, say hello.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello, I'm James Wallace. I used to write for Tabletop Gaming Magazine up until about 15 months ago when I took a job with Asmodee, of all people. I'm now studio manager of Green Board Games, which is Asmodee's only game design studio in the UK. You've probably never heard of us because we do the Brainbox games, which are educational games for kids, though we're looking to branch out in the near future. So I'm here as part of Asmodee, but I'm not actually on the Asmodee stand. Green Board Games doesn't have a trade stand here. There's a Dalek over there. A Dalek just rolled past. Good Lord. We don't have a trade stand because, to be honest, UK Games Expo is not our market. We are not only a younger age group targeting, but also more mass market as well. We sell through Sainsbury's and Asda and Argos and places like that rather than hobby game stores. But at the same time, I need to talk to distributors, I need to talk to retailers, I need to talk to demonstrators. I need to take the temperature of the industry, which we've not been able to do. I've not been able to do since I started the job, because I took the job just as the first lockdown was coming. So I'm looking at the quirky little independent startups and the weird trends that are coming through and seeing if there's anything that we may be able to make use of. By which I do not mean rip off, I mean talk to these developers and do something interesting with them potentially. There's cool stuff out there.
You're on the hunt.
I'm on the prowl, yes.
So what are the kinds of things you're looking for? if someone was here today and they wanted to polish up their stall for tomorrow, to get the James Wallace eye, what would they do to this?
That's a good question. I like anything that's doing something new, that's not doing just another game about trading in the Mediterranean, or the North Africa conflict in World War II, or dungeons. Frankly, had enough dungeons. I'm anything that either new subject matter. There's a couple of games about politics. Politics is not usually a fruitful area for board games, but there are a few that have made it work. In Twilight Struggle being the great example, 1960 Making the President, that kind of thing. But people are going, there's humour games about politics. Again, for satire, very, very difficult, ages really fast. But there's a game called it's called Vote Me, I think. Redwell Games. It's a little improv game about making political speeches and policy decisions on the fly, and it's silly improv fun. But I think it works. I'm not saying that we're going to license it immediately and make it a million seller, but it's clever and it's outside the mainstream. And if you're looking to be an independent publisher, you can't just do what everyone else is doing. You're not going to get a breakthrough hit by doing the same thing as everyone else. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. The other trend I've noticed, I don't know if you spotted this, there's two different people doing games on greetings cards.
Yes.
There's a company, I can't remember what they're called, but they're doing escape rooms on greeting cards, which is basically, it's a clever puzzle on a greeting card, but it's still the same idea. And then Ellie Dix of this parish is doing entire games on so it's a greetings card with a game printed on it. You cut out the game and you can play it. And it's Ellie. She's really smart. Her games are really clever. I have a huge amount of time for what she's working on. Will this be the next hit? Will it be a thing that dies away? I don't know. But the fact that it's a breaking trend. People are looking for new ways to present games as well. And the other thing that I was overjoyed to see here, I'm blanking on the name of the company. They do Burgle Bros and paperback and hardback. Tim Fowers, his company. They are here. They have a trade stand. A lot of their stuff is hard to get in this country. Burgle Brothers, I think, has been out of print for a while, but you can buy it here. Their games are really smart and really clever, but their boxes are just amazing. Burgle Brothers, you probably know, you fold out the box and the box becomes, and then you lift it up on pillars and the box becomes the second floor of a building, and it's just so smart. I am so tired of lift-off boxes. Your everyday, ordinary, lift it up, there it goes. There's so much you can do with a box. There's so much wasted real estate and wasted resources there. This is something that we're looking at Green Board Games, and our games have flip-top boxes with magnetic clasps, which are fun, and there are a few people doing that. But it was just a delight to see these things, and it's the wow factor. I can get tedious about pitching games and making games and selling games, but there's blanking on his name. One of the great old men of Hasbro in the glory days of Hasbro retired recently. He talks about the double wow factor. What you want to sell someone a game is to make them go wow twice in about the first 5 minutes. And the box, a clever box design is an instant wow. That's it, the coolness of it. And the second wow, and they're sold. That's money on the table right there. So just looking out for people that are breaking the mold, people that are doing clever things. And there does seem to be a number of manufacturers, little indies, who are not just looking to do the same old stuff. They're looking to find ways that they can differentiate their product, or just thinking about what areas are games not exploring at the moment, and they're looking to go there, and that's great. I think Wingspan has kicked off a lot of kind of naturalistic games in non-traditional territories for games, and proved that these things can be a massive success. And they're not just taking that as an incentive to do more games about birds. They're taking it do games about their passion. If you follow the Great British Bake Off, you may remember Kim Joy. Kim Joy from a few seasons ago, who, I don't know if this is breaking any great secret, is the partner of the founder and manager of the Travelling Man game and comic shop in the north of England. And they have crowdfunded a game which is coming out in the near future. I can't wait. I genuinely can't wait. I think it's people combining their two hobbies of games and something else they're passionate with. I think there have been cooking games before, of course there can, but I think, of course they have, but this I think could be really interesting. And I can't wait to see that. I've no idea if it's here. Maybe somewhere in the hall. I've only got around about a third of it so far.
Thank you very much. Where can people find you if indeed you want to be found?
Yes, by all means, find me. Greenboardgames.com is essentially the Brainbox website, or drop me a line, james.wallis@greenboardgames.com. We are looking for submissions, but they have to be very, very particular submissions. Educational games, or games with an educational edge for a younger or family market is what we're after. But, you know, if you pitch me the right project, I can get your game into 17 languages.
Yes, so we're the Party RPG, and we're here to sell a really super easy role-playing game.
Yeah, well, it's my store.
And what is it? How do you do it? Why is it so easy?
That's a great question. Yeah, I should start with that. So, the Party RPG is a super easy to play role-playing game that smashes together traditional role-playing elements like broken bridges, goblin minefields, character enemies like goblins and orcs and dwarves, with party games as well. So real-life challenges, which range from a dancing bush that you have to dance to overcome, or a squawky pig challenge, which means that you have to take on the role of a pig and squawk like a pig in front of lots of people, your group of friends. Great fun, terrific fun, great fun for everyone, all the family. Yeah, that's the Party RPG.
That's it. Where can we find you?
You can find us at stand 2401.
I'm James Naylor, owner of Naylor Games, and we're here today with both games that we've got at the moment, which is Magnate the First City and Board Games the Board Game, the card game.
And let's remind people what Magnate is.
Yes. So Magnate the First City is a property development game where players are developers trying to make the most money they can of a city going through a property boom. So plots of land come up for sale. They choose what plots of land to buy and then what to build them on them from 4 different kinds of buildings. So you've got industry, retail, offices, and homes. Those types kind of interact, and they're trying to attract tenants to move into those buildings, and then eventually make so much money they can start selling them for big capital gains. But they've got to watch out, because eventually, while prices are rising and rising and rising, they go too high, and then there's a crash in the market, and then the person after the crash with the most money is the winner. So they've got to time their exit correctly.
And we've also got, and by the way, I love Magnate. I think it's a absolutely fabulous game of, if you play like I do, just experimenting with how much you can ruin things and as quick as you can.
Absolutely.
And we've got a new card game, cheekily titled.
Very cheeky title, yes. Yeah. Board Games, the board game, the card game.
Yeah.
So in Board Games, the board game, the card game, which I've got very good at saying now, you are a game designer trying to make the most money from your games while also achieving critical acclaim.
Yeah.
And it's a game with 2 ways to win. So the kind of first part of it is that you're going to play idea cards representing different themes, tropes, concepts, mechanics from games into one of 3 rows. Each of these rows represents a game that you're going to make.
Yeah.
The first game you're going to make is a bloated masterpiece. Then you're going to make a reliable gateway game, and then a mass market cash cow. This has to be your most complex game, this has to be your middle, and this has to be your least complex game. But within that, because we know complexity is great, you're trying to make the most valuable combination that you can, so that you can then score the most, with the obviously the mass market cash cow having the highest potential, but also has to be the least complex game that you make. So what players are doing, they're playing these ideas into rows, and they're manipulating them using different development cards as well, which allow them to do things like change numbers on cards or draw new cards, idea cards, that kind of thing. Then at the end of that, they're going to work out who's made the most money. But then what we do is we decide who is actually the kind of greatest designer critically. And what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of your rows of idea cards and you're going to pitch it to everyone else at the table.
Yeah.
You've got 1 minute, you have to include a title and every single one of the ideas. So this middle row, for example, would have to include dungeon crawling, anthropomorphic animals, a deck building mechanic, and birds.
Perfect.
And if you can make that, which sounds some sort of dungeon crawling successor to Roots, maybe, then immediately you can then hopefully maybe stand in a chance of winning that award from your friends, who will then vote on whose idea they thought was best.
Excellent. That's fabulous. So is this also going to mimic your path through games?
Oh wow!
So you're going to do. Sorry, you're going to do critically acclaimed.
Yes, a bloated masterpiece.
A bloated masterpiece, sorry. And then you're doing a reliable gateway game, which I guess is this.
Yes, it's kind of like this, maybe. And then a mass market cash cow. Probably
Yeah.
not this because it's a little bit too in-jokey for
Yeah.
that with our little funky flavour
Yeah,
text on the cards.
So we wait for your next game to be the mass market cash.
That's going to be the mass market
Yeah.
cash cow,
Yeah.
exactly. It's going to be my follow-up to Exploding Kittens.
That's it.
It's going to be my follow-up to Monopoly again somehow.
Yeah,
that will be what I'll do.
That's good. So where can people find you here in the hall?
So they can find us at in Hall 2 in T31,
Yeah.
which is basically we say get to Catan, turn left and walk a bit.
Yeah, that's it. And if they want to find you online, for example, in podcast form.
Yes, they can come to my podcast, Producing Fun Podcast, which is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the usual places. They can also find my website, which is naylorgames.com.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm James Buckley. I work for Phalanx. We're at UKGE 2021 at the Phalanx stand. We are looking at Brett Wilder, which is a new game we're working on, which we will release on Kickstarter hopefully early next year. The game is set in around the 7th and 8th century in England, and it represents the battle at the time among the 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of England for control of the seven kingdoms. Historically, the leader of all the 7 kingdoms was known as the Brett Wilder, hence the game's name. The game is an area control game where you control one of those. It's currently 4-player. We'll probably do an expansion taking it to 5, where you control one of the kings, trying to get control of different areas on the board, complete different objectives. On your turn, you'll maybe draw an event, and the events vary by the season. You might have to deal with Viking raiders. You might be able to bribe the Viking raiders to attack your opponents. You'll be building up your defences, building up a bit of your capabilities, harvesting, building up forces, making alliances, moving around with the objective of becoming the Brett Wilder. It's going to be looking like being a kind of low to medium complexity game compared to some of our other more complex games. Like I said, area control elements. A really key part of it is the visual impact of it. Its pieces are based on the Lewis chessmen, which you can see in the British Museum. The artwork is very evocative of the period.
It's incredible.
The player aid is going to be kind of canvassy.
How do we describe this art style in the way we've done it here? Is it just like Anglo-Saxon? Is that what we're going for?
I think we'll call it Anglo-Saxon. Yeah, of the period.
It reminds me of Nich. A little bit.
I agree, and actually when people have been saying about what kind of level is it, for me it's that level of complexity as well. You're looking at like a 12-15 page rule book with images rather than a heavier kind of games, which we also do. And it pops out like that. It doesn't have, I mean, the artwork is more traditional. Nich is stylized artwork of the period, whereas we're looking for something a bit more conventionally as it was at the period. But yes, I agree with you.
Love it. This looks great. In your sort of Phalanx weighting system,
yes,
this is
the big one for next year.
But this is below, I would say, Europe divided in terms of heaviness, probably.
No, I'd probably say we're still working on the rules to be decided. I've read the rule book. For me, it would be. Well, it's a completely different game because that's a CDG. I don't think of Europe Divided as a very complex game. Yeah, maybe a tiny bit lower. Yeah, maybe a tiny bit lower, but broadly the same.
Okay. But definitely more complex than Rocket Man.
Probably a bit more complex than Rocket Man. Yeah.
Okay, and we're going to move over here to this other board, I believe.
We have Successors. This is a game that we've just we're delivering a Kickstarter on at the moment, so it's landing on people's doors as we speak this week. And we're now accepting pre-orders for the new game. So this is the 4th edition of the game, and it's the new first time Phalanx has released it. We've completely given it a visual makeover. It was 4 players. We've made it 2 to 5 players. It's basically traces what happened after Alexander the Great died. There was a big battle that went on for decades historically about who would be a successor. This is that battle. It involves political control, alliances, combat. It's a card-driven game. Like I said, it's 2 to 5 players. Play about 4 or 5 hours. People that play Successors think it's the best multiplayer historic war game there is. So we've just taken it and up-notched it a bit.
Excellent. Is there something else you're showing me as well?
I'll just quickly show you Fire in the Sky. I know your readers don't do so many war games, but this is more conventional.
Can you sit down so we can do so I can get the levels right?
This is a more conventional hex encounter war game. So Pacific War strategic theatre, 1941 to 1945. So it's strategic level, but there's quite a few operational aspects. You control the allies. or Japan. The battle rages from CBI, China, Burma, India, all the way down to the Eastern Pacific and everything in between. Your job is to, depending on the scenario, place Pearl Harbor as a Japanese attack, all the way back to when the bomb dropped, fighting it out, tactically moving your pieces around, and then doing key operational battles, managing how much oil you've got and transport logistics you've got. So it's we've completely redone the game. It's an old game which we've redone, visually made it stand out and more user friendly.
This does look good.
Yeah, it looks really good, I think.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So where can people find you here?
We're in stand 2432.
Beautiful. Right.
Hi there. I'm Richard Jansen Parkes. I write about RPGs, and really that's why I'm here at the UK Games Expo. Also, frankly, I'm here because I live 40 minutes away, and so it's really easy to get here. No hotel fees. It's blooming wonderful.
What have you enjoyed so far? And also, let's note that you are here today as a family trip.
Yeah.
Not in a professional capacity.
Well, both. We brought along our 10-month-old, and it's been great. He's been charming people, allowing me to talk to them about games, which is wonderful fun. Yeah. Though it does mean that normally we sort of sit down and play games, and when you've got someone who wants to grab small pieces and eat them, then again, having said that, I'm sure this will be a common theme for everyone you speak to. Kind of a weird year, huh? Kind of a weird year for shows.
Yeah.
Not as many things to sit down and play as normal for some
reason.
Some reason I can't quite think of. But no, yeah, so there are a few things that have been great. First of all, seeing people.
Yes.
It's absolutely crazy. I've not seen anyone in so long. I've not seen any industry people in 18 months at least.
Yeah.
I think last time I saw anyone was Dragon Meet 2019, and that was December, so it's been a very long time. In fact, this is the first time we've met face to face.
That's
I think.
Right. Yeah, it is.
We've worked together for going on 2 years since the first time we've met,
Yeah.
which is wonderful.
This has been, I will say right now, sorry if I'm repeating myself from earlier, but this is basically a reunion for me. People I enjoy the writing of a great deal, and yet to enjoy the company of. And now I'm enjoying the company of this wonderful. That's it.
Yes, it's very good seeing everyone. Yeah.
So what have you seen that's good? What do you like? What have you seen? Because we've both picked up on a Castle World game.
Colossal.
Which I spoke to them. The first people I spoke to today was these guys whose name I've completely forgotten. I might have to edit this bit out now.
See, I've got a copy of their flyer in front of us. It just says Colossal, so I guess that's their name.
I think it's Nick, but it's a solo.
Yeah, sort of a solo journaling thing. The art's beautiful. So, as you might guess from the name, Colossal, it is about a colossal castle with continents, lots of coves.
It's Colossal, Collostle, so it's like Colo Castle.
You sort of create your class, then you sort of journey through things with a deck of cards. They sell their own very pretty deck of sort of specialised playing cards. We can also just use a standard 52 card deck, I think. Looks very pretty, looks very interesting. Lots of where many solo RPGs go for a very sort of fighting fantasy game booky style approach to things. This one seems to be more of a open-ended, using it to tell stories and go on adventures that aren't necessarily strictly dictated by the roll of a die or flip of a card type thing.
It looked pretty good. It looked very, very journaly.
Yes.
In the sense of it's heading towards that creative writing end of town, rather than noting down your adventure as the dice tell you to.
Yes. I don't think it's the kind of thing where you win as such.
Yes, that's quite right. There's no winning. I don't think so anyway.
Well, we'll have to have a look at that. I've not yet picked up a copy, but definitely looking forward to having a gander at it.
Cool. Is there anything else you really, really like?
Well, I mean, on the thought of so there's a game called Inspiles.
Oh.
So it's, again, very portmanteau-y. In this case, it's Inspire and Isles, which is apparently weird portmanteau is the theme for this UK Games Expo, which is a RPG based all around teaching people BSL and ASL, British and American Sign Language, of which Christopher is demonstrating his abilities.
Yeah, I only know one word, it's bullshit. It's exactly what you think it is. I bet you could do it at home right now.
And again, it looks fascinating. It looks very inclusive and interesting. It's based around sort of solving problems via the use of, you sort of learn signs and then use those to sort of solve problems in the game. We were speaking to one of the designers, and she was saying that she played it with her 6-year-old, who only knew the word for feed. But apparently, it's astonishing how many problems you encounter in a fantasy world. Troll's coming up to you, feed him. The king's real grumpy, feed him. I mean, it's a world of possibilities. But the art's amazing. It looks very, very wholesome. I don't think it's actually available to buy quite yet.
No, it's not quite ready yet, I don't think.
No, it's all pre-order type things. But it looks great. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I like that as an idea that what you've unearthed there is that games can only be what you let players do. And if you give people one verb, and that is feed, suddenly the world is about feeding things.
When all you have is a feeding hammer. As ever, every year I always make sure to check out what Loke have brought, the Battle Mats people.
I've not made it around yet.
In the interest of full disclosure, I did do some paid writing for them a while ago, so I am a horrible shill here, but I liked them years ago, so whatever.
Yeah. Also, you said on the last podcast, I think it's fine.
But no, they've got a big box of adventures, which is a whole load of maps and tokens and all this junk, and you sort of run things, which is very cool. If you are the sort of maply inclined sort of gamer, which is very nice stuff. Yeah, it's a weird year because a lot of the big names aren't here. So I don't think Cubicle 7 are here. I don't think Paizo are here. Modifius, I think, have a pretty small stand.
I don't think they're here at all, are
they? I certainly saw some Star Trek stuff, so I think they're here. But I think it's literally just a shop.
Yeah.
So it's in some ways it's been not great for seeing things, but in some ways it sort of obliged us to focus on some of the more interesting indie niche stuff, which I think is always worthwhile.
I think it's actually been quite a good year for indies in a way. I've seen lots of nice little things. It's nice to see people like Paul Stapleton from Bedsit Games here. And stuff like that, and also we're just talking about Penny's company, who's you've heard earlier on this podcast because I interviewed them earlier, and so forgive me for forgetting the actual name of it, but they did the In the Shadow of Mog RPG, which is a post-Brexit RPG, which is a very funny idea.
Tragicomedy.
Yeah. And also maybe in the end. Tragically mistimed because obviously Brexit was going to be the big thing of the next year or so. And
then
we had another thing.
Had something else that sort of stole the headlines.
Yet again, Z-Man Games came in with Pandemic. And
yes.
Here we are.
Yes. Well, I mean, so I'm sure there are a million people who told stories like this, but in February 2020, we finally started a game with some friends of Pandemic.
Oh yeah, a legacy.
Yeah. And we're about 3 sessions in, and then we've not seen each other for 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because normally at the Games Expo, I spend a lot of my time playing and running RPGs. And obviously this year, I looked on the events page, and I think there are maybe a dozen RPGs running the entire weekend.
Yeah.
Compared to the usual hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. So it's a very unusual experience. Definitely enjoying this year. I'm looking forward to it maybe returning back to a bit closer to its former self in future years. Oh God, I hope it does. I hope this doesn't just... Sorry, I'm just despairing over here.
this is the fear that we are never free of this lockdown, right? Which is, I think, a legitimate fear. And I will say, I mean, actually, what's your opinion of the way COVID stuff's been handled here?
So,
if you don't mind.
I think that people were rightly a bit miffed about the messaging in the run-up. I think it was only 2 weeks ago that they sort of gave their first wave of guidance, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was essentially, no worries. Well, no, that's a bit unfair, but sort of no masks and not much mention about distancing. And they've since gone back to having masks be mandatory when you're walking around, and put in a few more concrete things about the distancing and the sanitizing. I think they have done as well as they can under the circumstances. NEC seems to have some pretty strict rules. We had to sort of go through checkpoints with the NHS Pass app, test and trace stuff.
Can I say that was much easier than I thought in the end? As in, we walked up at whatever it was, 10 to 9 or whatever it was, and showed the pass at the door. We'd already got the pass. It was actually okay.
Yeah.
Getting the pass is a bit weird, but that's not really NEC's fault. That's more to do with the government, how they're laying out the websites and stuff.
I think for the most part, people are being reasonably sensible. I can think of very few hobbies that are impacted quite so much by not being able to physically handle things as tabletop. In fact, we had a moment's downtime earlier, so I went to the board game library, which is great.
Yeah.
If you ever come to the Games Expo, there are just hundreds and hundreds of games in the library. You put down a £10 deposit and you get it back at the end. It's great stuff. And I saw all these games and I thought, I should have a look at that. I want to pull it off the shelf and have a look at and then thought, maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, I find myself, there's something really bad about wanting to flick through a book and having to put something wet on your hands before you do it.
Yes.
I think that's a very strange situation.
There are going to be some very booze-soaked preview copies of stuff hanging around. I think I can see why people don't want to come. I've seen, especially on Twitter, people saying that it's a bit risky, and I think that is not an unreasonable stance to take. But I also think it's great for people who happen to come here and do feel relatively safe doing so. It's good to see people again. I mean, one of the great things about tabletop games is that it's tabletop. There are people there. And I've been playing a lot of RPGs online. And it is great. It allows me to play with people. In fact, I ran games for last year's show, and the table I was at had people literally across the world. There's people from Brazil, some people from East Asia, some people from Europe, and it was great. And you couldn't do that in person. But at the same time, just having people around there is something about that you can't really, I don't think, capture entirely over Zoom.
It's not possible. Where can we find you? Where should we find you? Should we find you?
No, you shouldn't. I'm terrible. No, you can find me at Winghorn Press on Twitter, and also just that, .com as a website. I write about stuff. I write stuff. It's all good. I write for a living. I should have a more pithy sign off than that, but I don't have one. So there.
This is RJP.
RJP,
who does the RPGs.
Oh, I've never thought about that before. I should make a thing about that. RJP RPG.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So hello, I'm Cesar Algezar. I'm the lead product manager probably now of Alley Cat Games, but I also do most of the business stuff and the negotiations. But I founded Alley Cat Games with my wife Cully, and I run it from the top, but there are lots of other guys underneath me who do great work for us.
And you make excellent games like Dice Hospital particularly.
Yes, that's our most well-known title.
Which I love, and I really love the community care expansion.
Lovely, thank you.
I think that the maternity expansion is really It just elevates the game just a little bit more.
Yes.
It's the perfect amount for me.
Yes, fantastic. I mean, Dice Hospital Community Care was always meant for hobbyists, because Dice Hospital itself was meant for casual and hobbyists, but we always thought that we could do so much more with it. And Mike, who designed the expansions, did a fantastic job with it. So
I'm really pleased with it.
Lovely, thank you.
So tell me what you're showing off today.
So actually, we were hoping to show Tinner's Trail. We've only got that on demo. We were hoping to sell it, in fact, sorry. And Paper Dungeons is also on demo. That's our other highlight today, this weekend. And that's been selling like hotcakes, and we're practically sold out now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're really pleased with it. We had to air freight copies in because the ship was slightly delayed, like everyone else.
Yeah, like everyone else. Yeah.
But yeah, we're really excited about that. We're also excited about Starfighters, which is our upcoming Kickstarter. It's kind of like X-Wing meets Escape. It looks beautiful already, even though the other stuff is like basic art. And yeah, we've got other stuff like Community Care, like you said. Gosh, so many games. We've got Pier 18, we've got Tinderblocks, Kitten, our mass market games. We've got Dice Theme Park, which is coming out early next year, and Eternal Palace similarly.
Very good, very good. Cool. So, is there anything else you'd like to spread a bit of joy about here at the show?
Well, it's just so fantastic to be back, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so nice. I was talking to Paul Spencer from Play for Keeps. I was talking to Mark Cook from PSC. It's just nice to chat with other peers, just to compare notes.
Yeah.
And it's just really nice to be back amongst our customers and our fans, just to say hello, because we haven't had that for the last 18 months, have we? So, yeah, I've just enjoyed the people.
Tinner's Trail. Let's talk about Tinner's Trail.
Yes, Tinner's Trail, yes.
Yeah, so Tinner's Trail.
Yeah.
This is a new edition.
Yes.
Revamped in lots of little ways.
Yes.
Can you just take us through a few of those? The highlights?
Yeah. So, I mean, when we were talking to Martin for, I don't know, about a year, he met us at Games Expo 2019. He said, hello, someone randomly emailed me. And I said, yes, that was me, hello. So we got chatting. We got to speak a couple of months later at Gen Con, and he said, well, I got a few ideas. And then one day we wanted to do a reprint. So we were going through the list of games that we could reprint, and actually Tinner's Trail came up as one of them. Yeah. So we said to Martin, we said, hey, what's going on with Tinner's Trail? And he said, well, nothing really. So we said, could we do a remastered edition? He said, absolutely fine. So we were like, here are our ideas. Could you tell us yours? So we had a roundtable discussion. He had lots of ideas because his original publishing house, when he published it, didn't have any cards in it. So Tinner's Trail, the original version, did not have cards. So he said, I'd love to do something with cards where it had part information, part hidden information, and maybe have some tile system goes on, something like that. And we're like, okay. So David Digby came on board, who was a freelance developer, and we said, what could you do with this? So he brainstormed, and he came back to us about 2-3 weeks later, and he said, this is the general concept, and it essentially became Tinner's Trail as it is today, the new version, which is, rather than randomizing the resource stuff on the board with dice, which is completely random, it's now done by a sort of a bell distribution of tiles per region. And then that way it's much more fair, even though there are some duds, but there are also some really nice ones there as well. So that's one part of it. And then the card play is very interesting. There's a 2-player variant and then the 3 to 5-player variant, where everyone's given cards for each region, and you can decide to either use it to sort of see what's underneath the tile by revealing your card, or you can play it right at the end once after it's been revealed, to decide what to do with it. So there's a really nice interplay there. I mean, it's still a very Martin Wallace game. We wanted to keep that core essence. It is quite cutthroat, so it's not going to be for everyone, but yeah, we're really pleased with what we've done with it.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Where can we find you at the show?
We're at stand 2502.
By which you mean directly in front of the
Directly in front of the entrance, yeah. As you come in, we're left of Catan.
Yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm the game designer and managing director at Themeborn, and we make the Escape the Dark series, Escape the Dark Castle and Escape the Dark Sector, which is myself and my friends Alex and James.
Great. And what are you showing off today, mostly?
We're showing mostly off Escape the Dark Sector, which this year is nominated for Best New Dice Game at the UK Games Expo Awards.
And it is a banger. in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, it's certainly, our demo tables have been full all day. People seem to be loving it, so yeah, we're very happy.
Very good. We talked at Tabletop Gaming Live 2019 about, or maybe afterwards, about how you're going to deal with having two games at your stand. Because that was your last year of just
Yes,
cards.
it was.
Have you come to terms with it?
We've split it 50-50.
Yeah.
Try and they're both my babies. I can't choose between them, so 50-50, 2 tables of each, and it's been going down really well. And we've got some of our new prototypes in the cabinet as well of expansions for Sector.
Oh yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the kind of thing we're adding in?
We've got 3 mission packs, we call them. Each one introduces a load of new chapters and characters and stuff, and then a load of new rules.
Yeah.
So we've got one which is called Twisted Tech, which is all robotics and bio-freak augmentations and stuff. We've got Mutant Syndrome, which is, of course, mutations and grotesque kind of metamorphosis you can go through, including the crew.
Yeah.
The players can mutate.
Brilliant.
And then Quantum Rift, which is a time travel pack. So you'll be travelling through time, including all the way back to Castle from Sector.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
they're connected?
They are connected.
Yeah.
It's all in the same universe, and there's a few little Easter eggs in there about that connection to look out for.
Very good. Right. Thank you very much. So where can people find you today? Because it's hopefully going up.
Yep,
tonight.
we're at UK Games Expo Hall 2, booth 301. So come in the main entrance and turn left, and we're just down there a little bit.
Thank you very much. Have a good show.
Thank you, you too.